Cotton candy. You are my favorite summertime sweet treat. To my core, I am a cotton candy girl. It's like eating a cloud straight out of a Renaissance painting's sunset. One particular way I like to enjoy this voluminous confection, especially on a hot Florida summer day, is in the form of cotton candy ice cream. While my husband and I went through college together, we each went through a series of part-time jobs. I worked customer service and did some internships at my college along with a business office, while my husband eventually worked in the research lab of his physics department at his university. Before that, he worked in 3 different ice cream shops. After years of coming home smelling like spoiled milk and being harassed by beach tourists, his time of being the ice cream man had come to a close. Though he is still a fiend for ice cream, he no longer wants to make it. So for his birthday a couple years ago, I bought an ice cream maker with the added stipulation that I would be the one to make the ice cream. Because of this, I normally make the flavors that my family enjoys: chocolate chip cookie dough, mint chocolate chip, and the like. I personally enjoy the fruity flavors. So today, I'm going to make my personal favorite, cotton candy ice cream. So this goal gave me 3 questions. What exactly is cotton candy flavor? How did it make its way into ice cream? And how did ice cream and cotton candy make their way to us? To start, let's take a look at what ice cream is before we even add any flavor. On the basic culinary level, it's a frozen dessert. But on a scientific level, ice cream is considered a colloid. So it just means a mixture where one substance is encased in another substance in tiny little particles, where those particles will not break down in the surrounding liquid, aerosol, or gel. Now, ice cream is both a liquid, solid, and technically a foam due to the suspended air particles trapped inside. It's primarily made of milk, heavy cream, and sweetener. So how do we keep these particles from bonding and turning into a crystal? Well, one of the ways is adding fat. But water and fat famously do not want to mix. So it's like going to a party where there's 2 different distinct groups that don't really want to intermingle. Water at this party is polar. They disperse throughout the place, they never congregate in large clumps, they don't steal the conversation, they are evenly spaced. But the triglycerides in the heavy cream are non-polar. They like to clump up into little groups, they don't invite other people into their conversations, their groups aren't evenly spaced, nor evenly sized, and this is why fat is typically lumpy. So in order to prevent your ice cream party from being a buzzkill, we need to add some vibes to the mix. In this case, we emulsify. This is where the phrase slow churned ice cream comes into play. So while freezing, ice cream starts to form ice crystals. But by breaking these down as they form, aka churning, we prevent them from ever getting too big or growing on one another. During this process, air particles are being introduced and they latch on to the now dispersed ice cells. This is what gives ice cream its fluffy texture. So you might think, why do we add the milk at all instead of just making it with heavy cream? Then we wouldn't have to worry about as much ice crystal issues. Well, outside of tasting pretty heavy, the milk that we add along with the sugar are very important to our party here. So standard ice cream is made with whole milk, and whole milk tends to have around 87% water and 13% milk solids. Now in those milk solids are our protein, whey and casein. These 2 are our party hosts. They're the ones who know everybody at the party and help the different groups intermingle. They're considered amphiphilic, so they're both polar and non-polar at the same time. These create these little clumps of fat surrounded by water known as micella, and that's what makes up our colloid suspension. So now our party is blended, the ice cream's emulsified, but how do we keep it from hardening into a brick? Like, our party's blended, but no one's really talking or dancing yet. And almost like in real life, we add sugar to the mix. Now, sugar is like the booze or the DJ that knows how to play the best jams. It has the first benefit of being delicious and making ice cream a sweet treat and not just frozen half and half. But the physical benefit of sugar is that it starts a very important process called freezing point depression. Now, the sugar absorbs the water in our mixture, and by doing this, it decreases the freezing point. Now, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Now, the typical ice cream freezer is around 3 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius. Now, because we have lowered our freezing point, even at this temperature, our ice cream mixture only freezes around 72% of the water. The rest of it is now in a homogenized sugar solution with the rest of your mixture. Now, this lowered freezing point is what allows ice cream to be scooped directly out of the freezer. Now, cotton candy is a lot simpler. It's sugar that has been heated up, melted, and spun until it goes through a fine mesh sieve, creating these tiny fine strands of deliciousness that melt in your mouth. The labor involved in cotton candy is not so easy. But how did humanity end up actually creating them in the first place? We have to go all the way back to 550 BCE to Persia, and that is where we find humanity's first evidence of a chilled dessert. They would take snow and mix it with fruit juices, primarily wine. So really the first frozen dessert is actually more of a snow cone or sorbet. Now, due to the labor of collecting the ice and the difficulty in storing it, this already off the bat was saved for people of noble or higher rank. During the next few centuries, snow-based recipes started to find their way into Egyptian and Roman cookbooks. Apparently, Nero would send people regularly up a mountain to bring back snow and ice so he could have his slushies. He did a lot of other terrible things, but we'll save that for another video. While there is some evidence that gelato might have been made in Pompeii, we don't see any actual evidence of dairy-based frozen desserts until around 600 to 900 Common Era during the Chinese Tang dynasty. They would make a paste out of milk and overcooked rice and freeze them along metal tubes. It was often flavored with camphor. It really wasn't until the 16th century that we see what we would consider modern-day ice cream make its way to Europe. When Marco Polo returned from the East to Italy, he brought back a recipe for sherbet. It was at this point when milk and eggs were introduced to the European recipes, and we have what we would consider gelato. After this, all the other European countries wanted to make a version of this frozen creamy dessert with their own superior spin. France was the first one to introduce churning in order to make it fluffy, and after this is when ice cream parlors really began to pop up throughout Europe. And in 1790, the first American ice cream parlor opened up, and that summer alone, our first American president, George Washington, spent $200 in the span of just a couple months. Now, in 2025 money, that is $7,000 in one summer. After his death, they found in his belongings 2 pewter personalized ice cream bowls. Thomas Jefferson even built extra ice houses so that he could have more ice cream on hand and not have to worry about running out. Now, fast forward a few hundred years of ice cream being a regular indulgence among the rich, but a special treat among the working class due to their inability to make or store it at home. Until we meet Mrs. Agnes Bertha Marshall. She was one of London's first celebrity chefs. She wrote cookbooks, gave cooking demonstrations, and even engineered her own equipment. She gave us not one, but 2 very important changes to the world of ice cream. The first was a special ice cream basket that was double insulated and allowed for you to take your ice cream on the go to a picnic. The second is her creating the very first iteration of what we might consider an ice cream cone. Her 1888 cookbook contains a recipe for cornets with cream, which is basically a form of puff pastry stuffed with ice cream, and it set the stage for what would happen 16 years later. It is now 1904 at the St. Louis World's Fair, and this is where everything comes together. Now, if you don't know, this was a massive event. It spanned 7 months and was visited by over 20 million people from around the world. During the summer months of the fair, one of the most popular treats for people to buy was a bowl of ice cream. And the rumor goes that the main ice cream vendor had run out of his cardboard dishes and he didn't know what to do because it was a hot day. And a Syrian waffle vendor near him, who was having having a poor day due to people not wanting a hot waffle in the heat, suggested to him to roll his waffles up and use it with the ice cream as a serving dish. Thus, like the Reese's peanut butter cup, these two ingredients came together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. And we have the ice cream cone. Now, this 1904 World's Fair was the introduction to another very special element to my personal ice cream journey. This is when the very first cotton candy machine was seen by the world and its patent was introduced. Now, in order to understand how this fluffy dessert came to be, we have to go back to ancient China. Now, it's around 200 BCE to around 200 CE, before the golden age of the Tang Dynasty that brought us milk in our ice cream. And right before Buddhism was introduced to China, there was the Han Dynasty. Now, the imperial court chef wanted to impress the emperor by creating something that only an emperor could eat. And after some experimentation with melted sugar and rice flour, he came up with dragon's beard candy. Yes, the very same dragon's beard candy that made its way onto TikTok a few years ago. The emperor loved it. He thought this big mass reminded him of a dragon's head and that it would stick to your skin like a beard. So thus the title of dragon's beard was created. And this will show you no matter what, given enough time, everything will come back into style. Not too much longer in ancient Iran, a very similar treat by the name of pashmak was created. And this is where the technique of pulling or spinning sugar started to spread across the globe. Pashmak was often flavored with pistachios, once again setting the trend centuries before TikTok even got its hands on Dubai chocolate. Now, the Turkish created their own version of this, incorporating halva and tahini. And now this cotton candy is the same way that you saw it on TikTok, where a loop of sugar would be created and it would be dipped in some sort of starch, and then it would be pulled and then looped in on itself, and the starch would prevent it from sticking to itself, and it would be pulled and pulled and pulled until you have thousands and thousands of little strands. And due to the high labor of this was also a food that was saved only for the rich and noble. Save for Bosnia, which has cultural traditions to this day of people getting together in groups and doing this together, cutting costs on the labor while singing folk songs. Honestly, sounds like a lot of fun. Now, in Venice, during the 15th century Renaissance era, is when the recipe found its way from Turkey to Italy due to the European sugar trades. Venetian and Italian chefs for the elite would create these intricate, giant spun sugar sculptures. It would be on cakes or centerpieces. King Henry III of France once had an entire spun sugar banquet where even the plates and cutlery were made from sugar. Now, moving forwards to 1800s America is when sugar finds its darkest point. Due to the high demand of sugar, plantation owners started to push sugarcane crops more than ever, thus adding even more demand to slave labor. Now, due to this despicable use of slave labor, the cost of sugar began to lower, and sugar began to be more accessible to the common household. Due to this, household cookbooks began to incorporate sugar sculptures and treats more and more into their dessert recipes. Now, the use of slave labor started sugar boycotts in Quaker communities, which drew attention to the mistreatment of the slaves across America, which helped lead to the abolition of slavery and the American Civil War. Now, thankfully, slavery was abolished, though unfortunately for sugar-addicted Americans, this drove the cost back up. But it was too late, they were hooked. They couldn't go back. Now, come to the end of the 1800s, and spinning sugar is still a very laborious task. That is until 1887. A dentist of all people named William Morrison teamed up with a confectioner named John Wharton. Together, they created the first cotton candy machine. Now, they worked on their device for 7 years until they introduced it at the very same World's Fair that gave us our ice cream cone. They called their confection fairy floss, which is what the Australians still call it today. Now, funny enough, another dentist wanted to make his own version of the machine, and while his didn't take off, he is the one who introduced the name cotton candy. And after this process became mechanized, it was no longer considered a luxury food. It was available to the masses at every carnival and sold for cheap. And 92 years later is when the most important element in our story happens. I was born. Now, when this happened, Baskin-Robbins went into high alert, and they knew they had to get to work making their best flavor yet. It took them some time, and a year later, in 1997, they released the first commercial version of cotton candy ice cream. You're welcome, world. After that, the scent and flavor of cotton candy began to find its way into treats, drinks, perfumes, soaps, just about anything that can be given a flavor, you'll find a version of it that's cotton candy. But if I wanted to make my own extract, how would I start? What is cotton candy flavor if it's not just sugar? Well, the specific cotton candy flavor that we know of today is due to Gold Medal Products. This is the company that ended up buying the patent for the cotton candy machine and formally introduced it to the carnival circuit. They coined the two flavors that we associate most with these edible clouds. Silly Willy Pink, which is really just vanilla, and Boo Blue, which is blue raspberry. Now, funny enough, Gold Medal Products is actually the one who created the flavor of blue raspberry, initially for their snow cones. Full circle. Though I'd say if you did want to make your own cotton candy extract, I would start with the blue raspberry that doesn't have a lot of citric acid notes to it, add vanilla, and then find a way to add a caramelized sugar taste. Now, Gold Medal Products is also the company that gives us gas station nachos, movie theater popcorn, and they're the ones who make the ice cream waffle cone maker. So basically, this company taking on and distributing their products at a low cost to the masses with colorful branding and marketing is one of the biggest catalysts for the shift of the cultural expectation of value for foods like cotton candy and ice cream. So despite years of scarcity of resources, despite years of labor driving the cost up, cotton candy ice cream is now something that I can enjoy for less than $10, either by the cone, tub, or even the raw ingredients to make my own. Now, this trickle down of value is not a unique societal experience by any means. The rich love being able to gatekeep things due to their privilege or wealth, but once it trickles down to the everyman, the elite cast it away and find something new to move on to. They always will need a way to feel superior. These same trends and cycles happen in fashion, beauty standards, and pretty much every other aspect of our life. For example, nowadays, nearly anyone can go buy or make themselves a smoothie, right? Yet to society, there's a big difference between the $3.99 strawberry banana smoothie at McDonald's and Erewhon's $16 energy elixir organic smoothie made by nearly the same ingredients. We don't just have ice cream, oh no. We have rolled ice cream. We have liquid nitrogen frozen ice cream. We have fruit flavored ice cream molded back into the original fruits that they were flavored after. I will admit these look amazing, but it's still just molded ice cream covered in white chocolate and airbrushed with liquid cocoa butter. But due to TikTok, you can sell what's essentially 50 cents worth of ingredients for $16.99. Or a cone topped with so many ingredients. It looks amazing for your social media picture, but the moment you try to take a bite, it falls over onto the ground due to the brutal and unchanging force of gravity. We don't just have cotton candy anymore. We have viral cotton candy burritos filled with ice cream and candy, and there's no way that it's feasibly edible, nor is it very comfortable to actually bite into a solid mass of cotton candy. But it looks great for the shock factor of a video. Now, if you don't want this and you don't want the Dubai chocolate, we have Fallen Angel chocolate, a $20 chocolate bar stuffed with cotton candy. Or if you really do want regular cotton candy but still want to feel superior, you can get it shaped into your favorite cartoon character the size of a small child and advertise to small children at your local mall. And if it isn't about affordability, it's about availability. Once the materials are easily sourced, the artificial scarcity needs to kick in. You know those Pokemon cards aren't worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars of paper. It's the value the society puts on them due to them thinking it's rare or special. They think it's gonna fill some hole or make them feel cooler than the person next to them. I'm looking at you Labubu freaks. You know those creepy ass dolls aren't worth the amount of polyester and rubber that they're made out of. It's the weird virality and artificial scarcity from the company that makes people go crazy and spend more money than they would ever need on something they wouldn't want in the first place. I feel like it's a bit of id versus ego mixed with keeping up with the Joneses, and it just gets kind of messy and cluttered. We want to join in so we don't have the feeling of missing out and that we can connect with each other, but we still feel the need to be superior by having the ultra rare or expensive or special one. And it just seems to be getting out of hand these days. Everything is a collectible, everything has false value. The rich are always gonna find something new to be superior about, and it's gonna make people feel insecure until it trickles down to them, but by the time it gets to them, the rich and elite have moved on to something new. You will never catch up. You are not meant to catch up. You're meant to be a part of this cycle of wanting to fit in or feel special or better. But we're not taught enough to be happy with what we have or to figure out ways to find it ourselves in our own versions. For me, I am thankful that engineering advancements have allowed for me to enjoy my cotton candy ice cream easily and affordably. I value my ability to purchase it whenever I desire, to have the resources to make my own, and even the ability to record and share this video with you all. I think about all the human history that came together in order for me to enjoy this delightful treat in the comfort of my own home. I respect the innovators before me who took a chance on something new, and for those who changed what was around them in order to progress human history a little bit further. I don't find less value from something just because it is now available to the masses. In fact, it makes me feel more connected to those around me. I find that it allows for people to come together easier. Without diversity, without the sharing of culture and ideas, humankind suffers. I hope you all have a lovely summer. Enjoy your ice cream, cotton candy, mixture of both, or whatever else it is that brings you joy. Don't forget where you come from, and be kind to each other. Bye!